Good afternoon, friends. My name is Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from New York. Today, I have an urgent live to discuss breaking news. A very important Board of Immigration Appeals decision that was issued and published yesterday, September 5th, 2025. And it concerns and can affect even those of you who are currently in legal status. Thank you very much for joining. Again, my name is Shautsova. I'm an attorney practicing immigration law in the United States for over 17 years. And I hold these live sessions usually to update you guys with regard to most recent immigration news. And this is exactly what we're going to be discussing today. So thank you for joining, and let's start. Board of Immigration Appeals is the place that decides immigration issues. And once the decision is made, that decision covers the entire of the United States. Every immigration court has to follow the Board of Immigration Appeals published precedents. And yesterday, they made a very important decision, changing the way certain immigrants who are in the United States are going to be handled, I guess, by the United States immigration system. I am referring to the decision of matter of Jonathan Javier Yahure Hurtado, who is a citizen of Venezuela. So what happened in that case is that Mr. Hurtado entered the United States without inspection in 2022, in November of 2022, but later was granted TPS, temporary protected status. That status, however, expired once Trump's administration took over. That status expired on April 2nd, 2025. And later, respondent was detained by ICE. I'm not sure what were the circumstances, but the person was detained. He asked for bond routinely. If in the past a person in his situation would have been detained, the bond would have been granted because he was placed in a regular removal proceedings. But this was different this time. The bond was denied. Immigration judge stated that he doesn't have jurisdiction to grant bond because Mr. Hurtado was a person who was not admitted or paroled, and he was subject to mandatory detention. Mr. Hurtado filed an appeal and he lost it. Yesterday, Board of Immigration Appeals made this decision that's going to affect everybody who is in the United States, who was never admitted or paroled, or in a simple language, crossed the border. If a person crossed the border now and they're picked up by ICE, they will be subject to mandatory detention, meaning that they will not be able to ask for immigration bond, and instead will be kept in immigration detention until and unless ICE gives them parole, which, as we all know now, ICE doesn't want to give parole to anybody once they apprehend them, only in very rare circumstances. So here we go. This is the decision. It's not the only negative decision, I have to say, that has been issued within the past week. We had other decisions that reshaped immigration laws one more time, but I was not surprised by the other decisions. For example, Attorney General recently held that membership in a particular social group, again, has to be viewed as a very narrow circumstance when a person is asking for asylum in the United States. That was expected. That's exactly what happened during the previous Trump administration. Another important decision was concerning USCIS, actually, announcement memo about creation of special agent units that are going to be arresting people they're suspecting of fraud, including immigration lawyers. That was not a decision, that was a USCIS DHS announcement. There were decisions about bond proceedings, basically saying that if a person doesn't have a reliable sponsor, they will not be released on bond. But again, that expected. But this decision surprised me, I have to tell you, because I've been practicing for almost 20 years, and we have never had this situation where a person who is in the United States for more than 2 years, well more than 2 years, and at some point that person even was granted lawful status by the United States government, that person now is treated as the worst criminal, somebody who cannot get out of the immigration detention. Talking about the significance of this decision, I have to highlight the fact that if you are in immigration detention, typically the chance of you succeeding, winning your case is very, very small, because there are additional obstacles now in your way trying to defend yourself from removal, access to counsel, access to evidence, to your witnesses. You cannot freely communicate with all these necessary people, experts, who would help you to build the case. So now you know what happened. Now you know what's going on. And I think perhaps this will be the law up until some federal court rules otherwise, but when that's going to happen, I do not know. So again, just to sum it up, those who entered the United States through the border, you could have been stopped at the border, issued some paperwork, but you were not paroled. Those who crossed the border and you guys were never stopped. Perhaps later you were even given status such as TPS. TPS, grant of TPS is not an admission. Now all of you will be subject to mandatory detention. In a mandatory detention situation, I cannot help you to get out on bond. Nobody can. Only if ICE grants parole, then you will be able to get out of that mandatory detention. All right, that's what happened. Now, if you guys have some questions, I'll be very happy to answer them real quick. I know it's a weekend. Good morning, Christine. Good morning, Mr. Muhammad. Let's see if you guys have immigration questions. It's truly is very important news. Please share this video, and don't forget to stay in touch with regard to, so you're going to receive more updates, okay? Because as I keep repeating, you guys have to stay on top of your immigration cases and on top of the immigration news to understand really your chances of receiving status, your prospects of remaining in the United States, prospects for your family and so on, okay? Hi, King Reserve. Will you automatically get green card extensions through abuse waiver? No, I don't think so. You don't get automatically green card extensions through abuse waiver. I'm not really sure what the question is about, so please let me know. What is going on with people that have been granted withholding of removal by an immigration judge? Well, typically those people are safe until the government files a motion to reopen their case and terminate the grant of withholding. Okay, that's what happens with those people. Thank you very much, Bayor, for your nice words. Hi, the chosen one. During the N400 process background checks, would it reveal to USCIS if El Para had unlawfully voted? Will they find out? Yes, they may. There are also questions like this on the form, guys. On the form N400, have you ever registered to vote, and if you ever unlawfully voted? It's a serious thing. I mean, if that happened to you, please work with an attorney. And something I covered in my short videos, but you probably by now you also are aware of the fact that USCIS is bringing back neighborhood checks. When you file for citizenship, they will be going around asking about you to see if they can get some dirt on you to see if you are undesirable person in the United States. It's a concern because what if your neighbor just out of spite or for whatever reason that they don't like you, they do not like your skin color, they do not like your religion, they do not like the way you look or what you are dressing, or they do not approve your way of living, they think they're better, right? There are people like that. They can say whatever to those agents, and it seems that whatever may affect your naturalization prospects. Will House Bill HR 875 on DUI be retroactive to green card holders? Oh, we do not know that because I think the wording is so vague that we do not know what exactly is going to happen. Are they being detained? Who exactly? But people who cross the border without inspection, if they are detained, if they come into this spot where ICE people are, if they grab you, then you will be detained, and not only you will be detained, you will not be able to ask for the bond, right? That's what's happening. Hi, Justin. Judge grant my I-45 in court. Did my InfoPass got I-551? Been 5 months since InfoPass appointment, still no green card in the mail. What can I do? All you can do is to follow up with USCIS. They're the ones who should be issuing you that green card, okay? You can ask your congressman to help you out as well. Hi, Mr. Islam. On N400 interview, USCIS asked digital record of removal hearing. After submitting this case is still pending, person entry B2 and filed I-589, then case was adjusted through, I guess, relative. What application can I do now? Is your office can help? All right, so work with your attorney. I do not know what happened there. I'm not going to be interfering or giving you any advice without knowing exactly what's happening. It's very important for your lawyer to review those records that you provided already to the government, as if they cannot access them themselves. And then you will be able to see if you would like to push them or not for to give you a decision, okay? All right, let's see if we have more questions. All right. Hi, Lee. Is it safe to drive with a 2-year green card, please? Yes, guys, of course. 2-year green card, conditional green card. You are a green card holder. You should be fine driving. Why would you be worrying about that? Unless you drive recklessly. So make sure that you are a careful driver, okay? Let's see if you guys have more questions. Thank you guys for following. Thank you for your stars and hearts. Thank you for your hearts on TikTok. We're discussing various immigration news and happenings. Very important announcement that came out yesterday. Decision from the Board of Immigration Appeals expanding the mandatory detention for millions of people who are in the United States. I can imagine not everyone will be detained because the capacity is just limited. You also probably saw what happened with this alligator Alcazar, right? That super immigration prison that the Trump administration was building in Florida, that got shut down. So they do have some barriers when it comes to expanding the number of detention beds, places, holding capacities. But it's still pretty scary, because what happens with this mandatory detention, from experience dealing with it in relation to people who had some heavy criminal convictions, aggravated felonies. No matter what your situation is, you have a little child, you have elderly parents, you may have yourself some health conditions. If ICE does not want to release you, you will be in that detention, okay? If they do not want to release you, all right? All right. And if you guys would like, again, if you missed the beginning of this video where I'm talking about this decision, you can always watch it in recording on YouTube and Facebook. All right, YouTube keeps everything for forever, Facebook for 30 days. All right, let me see if we have more questions. I know it's like bad news on weekend. Sorry, guys. And I don't think I covered it. You know, that's very interesting announcement. I did mention a little bit about this very interesting announcement that USCIS officers are going to have guns. That's another very interesting change, right? Hi, Gingermere. Hi, ma'am. Medical records private in the United States except USCIS medical exam. Ginger, generally speaking, medical records are private. They're subject to HIPAA, what we call. If you would like to share your medical records with anyone, you need to give that authorization to the person. You may be aware that there was a situation when immigration wanted to access medical records of people, and it didn't last for too long. Federal judge blocked it. So, but I think they blocked it with regard to Medicare and Medicaid. That's what I know about this, okay? Now, would medical records be completely private? And it also, why you're asking this question matters, of course. If there is a lawsuit of some sort and the other side would like to see your medical records, they can force you to disclose those records. They can ask the judge, and the judge is going to order for you to give authorizations to them, to the other side, to see your records. So, yes, generally speaking, your medical records are private, but in certain situations, nevertheless, they may be disclosed, accessed, okay, with the court order usually. All right. Hi, Rafia. My mom is a green card holder. She's gravely ill. I'm sorry to hear that. She applied for her son, who is above 21 years old and with a Down syndrome. His petition got approved in 2021. Can we expedite the case, or how can the case move further if the petitioner passes away? Hi, Rafia. There is a special procedure, special provision of the law in cases where a petitioner passes away after the approval of I-130. You can look it up and see if it's something that is may be useful for you guys in the future. I hope not, but maybe, right? I'm not sure where that son is, but you also can look into humanitarian parole. I'm talking about general humanitarian parole, not those paroles that were authorized by the Biden's administration for specific countries. But there is a general humanitarian parole that anyone can file for in certain hard situations. So you can look into this to try to bring that person to the United States in the meantime. All right? I think it is worth exploring that. All right, let's see if you guys have more questions. Guys, if you would like to consult with me in private, please, confidentially. I'm talking about not online, where everybody can hear us. Please call my office, 917-885-2261. Here, I'm just sharing general tips, but it's not a consultation, not a legal advice that you can rely on, because I don't see your documents. I don't have an opportunity to go in depth into your situation to see what exactly happened. Just please keep that in mind, okay? All right, let's see if we have more questions. Hi, Tuso. I came here as a refugee and have a green card. Can I travel with a travel document if I am from one of the banned countries? So you have a green card? Yes, you should be exempt from the proclamation. All right. Some local DMVs be automatically registered people to vote. That's correct. Would USCIS forgive that? Yes, they typically do forgive that as long as you did not affirmatively try to do anything. But that's a known problem that some DMVs, they just sign you up for voting as if you're a citizen. Another thing that can happen to you guys is that as a result of this registration, even if you're not a US citizen, you may receive an invitation to serve on the jury. And I know some of you get very, very worried about that, right? Not a big deal, really, because what you need to do is you need to respond to that questionnaire explaining that you are not a US citizen, you cannot vote and serve on a jury. You cannot do that. All right, let's see if we have more questions. Thank you guys for sharing the stream. Okay. Any update about the U visa? Do people have any protections with pending petitions? Unfortunately, U visa filing does not give you an automatic protection from deportation. But this being said, ICE can take this into consideration when they're going to see if they want to place you in removal proceedings, if they want to place you in detention and things like that. So I think they're operating under old memo right now that says that you should take this into consideration. You don't have to stop the enforcement, but you should inquire. After the person discloses this to you, you make a decision whether or not you want to proceed further with enforcement. A big change from Biden's administration is that officers are no longer required to ask you if you are a victim of a crime. So if you are, you have to disclose this. You have to bring it to their attention, okay? Hi, I0 and 4. Is it a good time to apply for I-45? Are they processing this category and how long is the processing time? Based on asylum, is it a good time? I don't know. Is it a good time for immigration in general? Listen, if you have a clean case, you should file. All right, you should file for your green card. Now, the processing times, I cannot tell you anything, unfortunately. For some time, these cases were on hold, and I think starting August, they people started receiving decisions on the green card applications based on asylum status. But from I think March or April until August, USCIS was not processing those cases. So if everything goes well, you are probably looking at about a year, 12 months, right? In terms of how long USCIS is going to be considering your case. Now, if you have any issues, anything in your case, then work with a lawyer. Anybody who can afford an attorney should work with an attorney, but more so if you potentially have some concerns in your case, okay? All right, let's see. Hi, tumbleweed. I received a jury duty summons. I responded to the questionnaire that I was not eligible. I know. And do not be surprised if they still send you another one. But it's not a big deal, really. At some point, you can email them. You can even show up there and say, listen, I cannot serve in the jury if you feel comfortable with that. Let's say you're a green card holder or you have legal status. You are not worried about going to these places. Some people, they're still going to be fine, but they're worried. So I understand why they wouldn't go in person to explain their situation. But of course, respond to that questionnaire. And save copy of your response, very important, and save proof that it was mailed or submitted to them timely, just in case. Who knows what else this administration is going to come up with? We do not know, right? We already have armed USCIS officers, neighborhood checks when you're filing for US citizenship. We have mandatory detention for everyone who crossed the border, even if you had TPS at some point, regardless of how long you lived in the United States. So maybe something else is going to pop up tomorrow, something wild, right? So you want to be as careful as possible. Guys, thank you very much for stars. Is it possible to apply for a tourist visa for Afghan nationals? Not generally speaking, unless you're going to fall into some exceptions, like national interests, humanitarian reasons, things like that. But Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken, is under ban, so you guys won't be able to get on a visitor's visa to the United States. Okay, that's what happens. Yep. Let's see if we have some more questions before I'm going to try to enjoy my weekend. It's kind of hard when you see this upsetting news, but it's very important. So spend time with your family as well, right? So let's see, guys. If you have immigration questions about the United States immigration. Hi, Christine. What's up today? Yeah, we're discussing this craziness from the Board of Immigration Appeals. Hi, Maximo. Has there been any changes with VAWA, Violence Against Women Act? Well, apart from general announcements that the government is going to be looking for fraud in every case that you file, no, not really. Okay, not really. That's actually the big thing now as well. They're saying that we are starting the war on fraud. I mean, is there a fraud in the immigration system? Absolutely, of course. But I don't believe that it is as spread as this government believes it is. Okay? And if they're looking for those who are committing fraud, I think they should start with services that are not licensed and providing some advice. Yeah. I know that you're watching me on YouTube, but I'm sure you're watching on YouTube a lot of different things, not YouTube, TikTok and stuff. And I see sometimes people who saying completely wrong things. And I look at them and I'm like, wait a second, that person is not an attorney, is not licensed. How do they even give anybody any immigration advice? But guess what? Those people are not lawyers. They have no ethical obligations. And they just say whatever. And when you come to them after they screw up your case, very often they're not even there anymore. All right, they did their job, they grabbed some of your money and they disappear and they just move from place to place. And I'm not sure why this government does nothing to stop these people, because they do nothing to stop these people. All right, and they should really do something. But what do I know? I guess they know better. First, let's go after licensed attorneys, right? All right. Yeah, they did publish an announcement, the USCIS, how they busted a group of fraudsters And that was like puzzling in itself. But apparently, there was an online group that was advertising that Cuban citizens can come to the United States without a visa, on a visa waiver. And they had some operation. They, according to that announcement, those people collected 13 or something $1 million. To get that amount of money, it doesn't happen overnight. How is it that government didn't see what's happening? They should have interviewed the first person who came in trying to enter the United States on this visa waiver thing when they were not eligible and stop this thing right away, but they didn't. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like this situation is a self created problem. But again, what do I know? They know better, right? Hi, Maria. What should I do with a brand new work permit? Can't find a job with a C14. Some employers want to interrogate regarding C14. What should I do? Maria, unfortunately, it's not really an immigration issue. It's an issue of discrimination, right? In the United States, there is a special law saying that, federal law, that a person who has authorization to work cannot be discriminated against with regard to employment opportunities based on that authorization to work, unless there is another law that says that you must be a green card holder to have this job, you must be a US citizen to have this job. But what I understand that's happening is that private employer doesn't want to hire you because they see that limited work permit, right? And they're not sure if you're going to stay with them and things like that. So you can file a complaint with the Department of Justice if that's what you want to do. All right, now where it's going to get you, I have no idea. I don't know. I've seen some cases where Department of Justice acted on these complaints, but usually they are against huge employers, corporate big companies. But try your luck, okay? If that's what you want to do. Okay. All right, guys, let's see. I'm going to answer one more question for today. Yes, guys, generally it is safe to travel on advance parole or using your green card. Now, by the way, I was thinking about this case of this poor person who's now subject to mandatory detention after the TPS expires, is Jonathan Hurtado. I'm thinking that if the person used TPS travel document to re-enter the United States, they would have been paroled now. And I don't think the government would have able to use this mandatory detention provision with regard to their situation. So remember that one of the benefits of the TPS, it's not just the work permit, it's also an ability to receive that travel permit. They can be extremely helpful in many different situations, including, it seems now, situation when you are detained. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much for today. It was nice to see you all this Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this stream. If so, please like and share it. Follow my social media so we can meet again. And of course, stay safe, stay updated, and I hope to see you soon.